Hello viewers, it's Josie. Welcome back to Eclectic Movie Reviews. And in this video, I am going to be reviewing some of the movies I saw in November. Let's start off with Armageddon Time. This is a semi-autobiographical film from James Gray. He directed the movie Ad Astra that came out a few years ago with Brad Pitt, the space movie. He also made Lost City of Z and The Immigrant. The story follows a boy named Paul Graff, played by newcomer Banks Burpetta. He lives in he's part of a wealthy Queens family. His parents are played by Anne Hathaway and Succession's Jeremy Strong. They're very much anti-Reagan. The Jewish, they're a Jewish family, and the conversations they have at the dinner table, like the grandma, are an aunt, I think, are absolutely hilarious. And Paul is very close with his grandfather, played by Anthony Hopkins, and you can make the argument that he's a bit miscast. While I love the warm presence of Anthony Hopkins on screen, I think you could have cast not necessarily a Jewish actor, but someone who can give somewhat of a New York dialect. I'd say Alan Arkin, Dustin Hoffman, or even F. Murray Abraham, who is just killing it on The White Lotus right now, could have played that part. But that being said, I was never bored with Anthony Hopkins on screen. I just think if they wanted to maintain some consistency, it would have been interesting if they casted one of the actors I mentioned. Paul slacks off in school and has artistic aspirations, like he does class and stuff. Back to his artistic aspirations, there's a funny scene where they go on a field trip to the Guggenheim, and he has this fantasy of becoming like a renowned the teacher praising his artwork at the museum. So Paul's grandfather is the most supportive of this side of him out of everyone in his family. Paul strikes up a friendship with a black boy at school named Johnny, played by newcomer Jalen Webb. Johnny is poor, he lives with his grandmother, we don't really know where his parents are. And Paul and Johnny, I think part of their connection, part of what draws them to each other is how they feel like misfits in their worlds. They don't, not conforming to societal expectations, if that makes sense. And he has this dream of going to space, and it's actually really cute when they talk about their dreams of art and space together. The two kids get into mischief, and then Paul's family is what you would call casually racist. They claim to be open-minded and accepting of others. They're Jewish, and so they say, like, their sort of excuse sort of is, oh, we, us Jews were discriminated against, so we understand what it's like to be discriminated, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, they're uncomfortable with Paul spending time with Johnny, and then they send him to a prep school to, make him adhere to their unrealistic expectations of the American dream. And what I like about this film is how it does not look at the past with nostalgic. I forgot to mention the story. The story takes place in 1980, at the wake of Reagan's election. And the funny thing is, I actually saw it on election day. Okay, so it doesn't look at the past with nostalgic rose-colored glasses. In fact, it's quite unsentimental, and James Gray is very critical of the socioeconomic power structures that are still in place today. And the movie was over. My friend next to me said, "It hasn't changed." And some have criticized the film for being sort of a white guilt apology letter. I don't think James Gray was intending that as much as illustrating an honest, vulnerable character study. And like the parents, back to the parents, uh they are not villains per se. I mean, James Gray shows affection for his parents, but he also isn't afraid to show, their flaws and how his father was abusive to him at times. And James Gray doesn't even completely let himself off the hook either. He shows himself as sort of a pain in the ass piece of shit sometimes, at times in the film. And while the film does not come together on the highest of highs notes, given that it is a bit inconclusive, like, when you're watching a movie and ends and you're like, that's it. I think what redeems it, though, is how it asks some of these uncomfortable questions that we wouldn't otherwise want to ask ourselves. So yeah, that's Armageddon Time. I also watched Causeway. That is new Apple TV. Oh, and back to Armageddon Time. Sorry. Armageddon Time is playing in some theaters still, though I don't know how many, and I believe it is on VOD. Next up, Causeway, Apple TV Plus movie starring Jennifer Lawrence and Brian Tyree Henry. Jennifer Lawrence plays an Afghanistan veteran coming home. She has a brain injury, dealing with PTSD, but at the same time, she sort of wants to go back to war. She sort of wants to enlist again because war sort of provided her an escape from life at home. Because she'd had some family dysfunctions. Her brother was in prison. So she goes back to live with her mother in New Orleans, and then she gets a job cleaning pools, and she develops a friendship with a car mechanic, played by Brian Tyree Henry, and he's an amputee. He has traumas of his own, and yeah, it was a very interesting story. Interesting, touching story. And what I really liked about it was how simple and straightforward it was. Yes, it's a little slight, and but at the same time, I kind of like that about it. It doesn't try too hard to be dramatic. It's just a simple, straightforward friendship character study. This is directed by Lila Neugebauer. She previously did theater directing. Lila Neugebauer, yeah, and it was written, and the screenplay was written by come on, internet. Ottessa Moshfegh, Luke Goebel, and Elizabeth Sanders. And Ottessa Moshfegh, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, is an author. And she and I've seen some of her books at the library I work at, including My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and most recently Lapvona. She and also she's married to Luke B. Goebel, who co-wrote the screenplay of Causeway with her. And Jennifer Lawrence and Brian Tyree Henry give really wonderful performances. Jennifer Lawrence is for the past, well, like my previous decade, was known for giving like I don't want to say over the top performances, but like let's just say like louder characters. But I really like how quiet and reserved her character of Lindsay is. And the funny thing, too, similar how I watched Armageddon Time on Election Day, I watched Causeway on Veterans Day! And I did not plan that! Okay, so, yeah, that's Causeway. I also saw, The Menu. That's, a horror comedy starring Anya Taylor-Joy, Ralph Fiennes, and Nicholas Hoult, Hong Chow, Janet McTeer, and John Leguizamo, and Judith Light. Really great cast. So this couple played by Nicholas Hoult and Anya Taylor-Joy go to this exquisite, like, private island to eat at this extremely high-end 5-star restaurant. And Ralph Fiennes is the chef. And some crazy things happen there. I don't want to give anything away of the plot more than that. I'll just say it is definitely a satire of, it's definitely one of those eat the rich satires, kind of like Triangle of Sadness. And have yet to see Glass Onion, but I know that the Knives Out series very much does that too. Yeah, what I liked about the Menu was it had some interesting things to say about the creation and the consuming of art, not just cooking, but other forms as well, whether that be painting, film, literature, music. Ralph Fiennes is hilarious as the chef. He plays it so seriously, but that's what makes it so funny. And Anya Taylor-Joy is just proving herself to be one of the best actresses working today. The Menu is currently playing in theaters. I thought it was a pretty fun, unique horror comedy satire. And then next up is Tar, directed by Todd Field. Tar is Todd Field. Oh, but some of the Tar, by the way, I saw in October, but I figured I'd include this in here. Anyway, given that it is award season and those movies in contentions are coming out now. Anyway, Tar is Todd Field's return to cinema after a 15-year break. His previous films were In the Bedroom and Little Children, both of which received Oscar nominations. For those of you who do not know, Tar is about a acclaimed Berlin-based composer/conductor named Lydia Tarr, played by Cate Blanchett, in a career best performance. Tar is a thought-provoking character study of someone at the top of their power facing their consequential fall from grace. Cate Blanchett is amazing, of course, but what really impressed me was Todd Field's directing. The film is a nuanced examination of cancel culture, in no way approaches the issues in black and white lenses. The way it addresses whether or not we can separate the art from the artist in a time where social media blends them together is incredibly blunt. Ultimately, the film does not take sides in the themes it addresses. Todd Field is more interested in crafting a character study than having an explicit agenda. By presenting gray areas, Tar feels true to life. Lydia Tarr in no way is a saint. In fact, she's manipulative, arrogant, and condescending. She plays favorites with her orchestra. One way Todd Field keeps you engaged with Lydia's story is giving her darkly humorous things to say in the richly intricate screenplay. Also, Lydia and her partner, Sharon? Yeah, her name Sharon, played by Nina Hoss, who's a well-regarded German actress who appeared in films of Christian Petzold, like Phoenix and Barbara. I've seen Barbara, and Barbara is really good. She gives a great performance in Barbara. Anyway, so Lydia and Sharon have an adopted daughter, whom Lydia is highly protective of. On a technical level, Todd Field really displays his Kubrickian influences. For those of you who do not know, Todd Field was an actor prior to making films. He played Nick Nightingale, the piano player in Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. Todd Field learned a lot from Kubrick when he was in Eyes Wide Shut, as he was in the process of making In the Bedroom, which is just incredible how that was his first feature. The camera angles in the orchestra theater scenes are shot with super wide angle lenses, making you feel like you're in an actual place of that size. That's why I'm so glad I saw this in the theater. Another Kubrickian aspect of Tar is Lydia's paranoia, reminiscent of The Shining and Eyes Wide Shut. As far as awards, I would not have a problem at all with Cate Blanchett winning a third Oscar for this. As I said, I love the cinematography and would love to see that nominated. And it just recently won like a Golden Frog thing at this festival, Tar Golden Frog Cinematography. Yeah, Todd Field's Tar wins Golden Frog at Cameradge, I can't pronounce it. Festival top prize. The cinematography done by Florian Hofmeister. The sound work is impeccable, especially in Lydia Tarr's moments of anxiety and paranoia. Most of all, I really, really hope Todd Field is nominated for director, because there is no movie without Cate Blanchett or Todd Field's vision. Tar is still playing in some theaters. I don't know if it's still playing in many, but it is currently, as of this recording, available on VOD, and I highly encourage you to check this out because I think it's a very important film. Next up is Banshees of Inisherin, directed by Martin McDonagh. This is the new film, as if Martin McDonagh, who previously directed In Bruges, Seven Psychopaths, and Three Billboards. Set on the Irish island of Inisherin in the 1920s, this pitch-black dark comedy is centered on two longtime friends, Padraig and Colm, played by Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. It's a rural, isolated community. Padraig lives with his sister Siobhan, played by Kerry Condon, who is Mike's daughter-in-law on Better Call Saul, on a farm. He has a donkey named Jenny, along with other farm animals. The animals actually have a significant presence in the narrative. They don't just feel like props as they would in other films. Mark McDonagh actually joked in an interview, "I think they're lead characters. In my next one, it's going to be all animals. Then I won't have to deal with movie stars anymore." One day, Brendan Gleeson's character decides that he doesn't want to be friends with Colin Farrell anymore. Patrick cannot handle hearing this. It's just a blow to his male ego. He fishes for the reason why, but Colin won't go beyond, "I just don't like you no more. I just don't like you no..." I'm trying to do Irish accent, I can't. It puts Colin Farrell into an obsessive downward spiral, leading to what's pretty much a full-on war between Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell's characters. One that's filled with darkly comedic circumstances. Mark McDonagh brings his signature pitch black comedic wit. All the performances are fantastic, especially Kerry Condon. I also love Barry Keoghan's performance as the village idiot. The scenery of Ireland is beautiful. Carter Burwell's score adds a folklorish feeling to the narrative. Some podcasters have pointed out that the story plays out like a Grimm's fairy tale. I would have to agree. I wouldn't in any way call the story fantasy. Fable is a better term. There is a character in the story who may or may not be a witch. On paper, the story is seemingly simple. Looking beyond the surface, the story can be interpreted in a number of ways. Some have considered it to be an allegory of the Irish Civil War. Whether or not Mark McDonagh may not have had this intention, the dynamics between Patrick and Colm can certainly be connected to today's polarizations, being on one side or the other, whether that be with politics, movies, or even sports. This 1000% deserves another Best Original Screenplay nomination for Mark McDonagh, and I have no doubt that it will get that nomination. Colin Farrell, I think, will definitely be nominated for Best Lead Actor, Brendan Gleeson for Supporting, and fingers crossed, Kerry Condon for Supporting Actress. Hashtag Justice for Better Call Saul. As I mentioned in my brief post-theater reaction on TikTok, I wonder if this... I would consider this a feminist movie because the women are smarter than the men and pretty much win out beyond the men's petty stupidity. Mark McDonagh has been in a relationship with Phoebe Waller-Bridge for the past 5 years. It would make sense that someone like her would inspire him in such a way. Next up, and finally, Bones and All, directed by Luca Guadagnino. Marin, played by Taylor Russell from Waves, is a cannibal. She lives with her dad. After a cannibalistic act, her dad basically kicks her out and she lives on her own as sort of a drifter. Her mother is out of the picture. She never even met her. She meets Lee, played by Timothée Chalamet, who is a cannibal with familial trauma of his own. Yes, it's about cannibals, and the story is upsetting, gnarly, and just heart-wrenching at times. But at its core is a sweet and tender love story about two marginalized outcasts coming together. Luca Guadagnino and screenwriter David Kajganich, I don't know, I'm probably mispronouncing his name, do a great job at balancing the genres of horror, romance, coming of age, and road movie. The film has the feeling of a cult classic from the 80s, not just because it took place then, but it was shot as if it were from that time too. What's really clever about the screenplay is the way it establishes the rules of the cannibals. For that reason alone, it deserves a Best Adapted Screenplay nomination at the Oscars, I think. It is based on a novel, which I've read. It's okay. There are things I like about it, but there are other aspects I find weak. The novel doesn't have as interesting world building as the movie does. The landscape cinematography capturing the road trip is beautiful. Timothée Chalamet and Taylor Russell give wonderfully vulnerable performances. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's score totally adds to the 80s feel I was talking about. Mark Rylance is a maniac. There are some great cameos from Michael Stuhlbarg, Chloe Sevigny, and David Gordon Green, of all people. I consider Bones and All, like, sort of a cross between Catherine Bigelow's Near Dark and Park Chan-wook's I'm a Cyborg, but That's Okay. And, uh, yeah, so that's my, November, uh, theater, well, except for Causeway, November movie release, well, late October, November release roundup. I hope you enjoyed this. The links to my socials are in the description below. I look forward to reviewing more movies with you, especially as award season heats up and I talk more about my film first-time watches of 2022, because after all, the goal of this channel is to connect the bridge between the old and the new. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you want to see more, click the like button and subscribe. Goodbye for now.